Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We have with us a great episode with Travis and Paxton, um,
That's a real podcast.
the Extra Real podcast. We're going to be talking about movies and entertainment, and would welcome you guys to join us. Give us some input, give us some feedback. We'd
Help
love
us
to have a
make this better.
have a conversation. Come join us. Anyway, we're going to start into it with the first movie we're going to talk about. We're going to be talking about the Back to the Future trilogy.
Cut scene to
And to give us some feedback on the plot, the structure of the film, and characters, we're going to turn it over to Paxton. He's going to give us a
breakdown.
breakdown of the movies. Floor is yours.
I don't know if you remember in Back to the Future 1, um, basically Doc makes the time machine and then he steals that plutonium and then he gets shot and then and then Marty tries to get in the time machine to go back in, and then he accidentally pushes buttons to go back in time. All he was trying to do is get the heck out of there. And then he ends up back in time where he changes his whole life basically by helping his dad and his mom meet because his life is about to disappear altogether.
Yeah, so the first movie's got an interesting plot. Throughout the three, I think it's really interesting. Like one and two have very similar structure in how they're written and how things kind of transpire. My personal opinion, number two is the best out of the three film trilogy. But um, we could further discuss that. We got the first film kind of recapping right now. We're trying to play through it and give us some memory of it. But it's an interesting concept. This is like the first big screen portrayal that I can remember where time travel was a thing, and I think they portray it really well. There's so many different ways you can think about time travel. The Simpsons used to do it to where it was kind of like a butterfly effect. If you ever went back into the past, the future would be different. I don't know. I think it's kind of strange to think about it either way. Um, we're going to start off with some questions on the first one. Uh, why do you think this was a good movie? What do you like about this movie? What do you dislike about it?
Um, well, about the first one, I like it. I think everybody likes it because it has to do with time traveling, and you're, basically trying to save your friend.
Yeah,
And so, I mean, you got friendship, you got love, you got,
yeah, it has all the tropes of a good film. I agree.
there's not a whole lot of adventure, I would say. It's more, I don't know, it does and it doesn't. Like, it's not adventurous like Indiana Jones, but it still has like that suspense, you know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's a lot of suspenseful parts, and that's I think what makes a great movie. I mean, I I'm not particularly a fan of movies that don't really have some kind of drama or suspense. There's that typical build up, kind of solve the problem, and then kind of steadily drop off at the end. That's kind of the way to go. There are some films out there that I would love to review that don't really follow that same trope. But for now, I mean, we just got all our films right now are kind of based upon that. Like,
Well, I feel
it's
like
got to be,
the first one doesn't really do that. I mean, you feel like it's gonna do that curve, like you say, but then at the end, like he's really close to being like erased from time.
yeah,
So then he's
yeah.
like, shit, I gotta really think of something to help my parents, make that one more step, and then that's when he plays the Earth Angel song.
Earth Angel, Earth Angel. So, um,
We're
this
going off me because I know more.
I remember
I
these
remember a
films.
lot
I
more
remember
than
number two because I think number two was the one that I enjoyed the best. I would always want to watch that one over all the other ones. But I mean, number three has its place. Number one has its place. Number two. Okay,
honestly.
so for me, number
I
two
agree with
has
you.
the
That's nothing.
the 1980s version of what today would look like. That's what I think makes it so appealing to me.
That's
and
cool.
how the 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 point where they go back to the future, their present time going to the future, 2015 was it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So they portrayed what they thought of back in the day, 30 years in the future. They had some weird advertisements coming out. They had just different the hoverboard, the self tying shoes, the self drying coat. Like all those scenes were just epic to me. It was just like
Well,
that's
the funny thing is the title is called Back to the Future,
that was
and
probably
they
the only
never go
one.
back to the future
Well,
though.
see, every time they go back to the past, they do go back to the future in their
Well,
in their own sense.
well, it's the present though.
And,
It's
and
not really
number
the
two, I
future.
think, if I remember right, number two has the best like demonstration. Right before that scene where it's like, bonk, the easy way. Doc makes this huge explanation of just like writing on the chalkboard. We've made a new timeline coming down here. Now it's across. He's still like figuring out this whole time travel piece. It's great.
Well, it's because Marty just came back. He just left that time frame just to come back again, and then Doc's like, "I just sent you back to the past," and then Marty's like, "No, I'm from a different timeline." He's like, "Oh my God, like, are you serious right
And
now?"
there's some good.
Which it was a good. I thought it was kind of funny.
There's a lot of good dialogue too that people carry on. Like one of my favorite ones is roads. Where we're going, we don't need
Or
roads.
Chris Scott.
Great Scott. Yeah, and there's some spin-off too of the show too. It's
Oh yeah, Rick and Morty.
well, that could be too. They do time travel in that. I mean,
Well, he
I would love
looks
to do.
exactly like Doc Brown,
I would love to
and
do
then he
more
looks
conversation.
almost exactly like Marty.
I would love to do more conversation on just like time traveling shows. Like, there's one piece that I would love to do would be the like in number two when he goes back and he almost meets his mom, and how would that portray out if you were to like make a new
Well, that's
timeline?
in number one. One's when it's his mom.
Number two, I think he had the chance to meet his mom too because they were dancing out in the crowd.
No, the second one
I think you need to rewatch that. 'Cause there,
no,
I'm positive in the second one there he's in that scene where he's playing music in front of the school.
that's the first one.
I'm pretty sure that's the second one.
That's the first one. I'll bet you money on that one.
All right. Well, we'll see. I'm pretty sure it's number two though.
No, it's number one.
Okay. Well,
Number one is he almost hooks up with his mom, and number two he almost gets caught again. But remember, I think you're thinking of the backstage part where because he does go back in time and he's wearing like the spy hat and the black leather jacket and the glasses. He does go in back of the stage because I don't remember what he was doing something
there's a specific scene in number two where Doc tells Marty, "You cannot meet your parents. Whatever you do, you cannot meet your
for
parents
yourself.
or yourself." Yeah,
Yeah,
which is another interesting topic to think about when you
which
think about time travel.
he did
Because
bump.
eventually, if you're taking yourself out of that time slot, going to a different time slot, are you not just going to see yourself eventually where you were at that point in time? Like, for
Well,
instance,
even what
you know where you woke up, like, let's say 15 years ago you were living in a certain house at a certain time, you woke up at a certain time. If you were to say go back in time and figure out what time it is and go to your house, would you be there? That's another interesting
I
topic
think
in
he would
itself.
be.
Yeah,
It
you
depends
have to
on
be. You have to be if you're time traveling. I don't know. It's interesting because you kind of take yourself out of that time period. Doesn't make a new timeline, does it? There's a lot of interesting ways you can think about it.
Well, it's not making a new timeline because you're basically going back. Well,
But
like
eventually, you got to go back to your time. See, this is where it kind of gets
no, I
tricky.
know what
You
you're
got to go
saying.
back to your
Present.
time, and different things transpire through things
Well, it
that you've
depends.
done in the
But
past.
it depends on
So,
what point in time you go back, though. That's why
so
in the
you,
first one, he goes back to a specific time just before he goes on the trip with his girlfriend.
yeah.
Because that's when he left.
So here's an interesting piece I want to put to you to see if you can imagine this. You go back in time and kill yourself. Do you automatically just disappear?
If I went back in time
Because
and
then
killed
if
myself
you're dead in the past, you can't transpire to be going
in the
back to the
future,
future.
but you still could kill yourself at that time, but then you can kill
You would
yourself
just be
again.
like instantly dead though, wouldn't you? Because then you're taking a part of the
Yeah,
timeline
but
of
you
being
still
able to
kill
go back to the
yourself.
past.
Yeah. but you're still there.
See, that's interesting. I don't how are you still there? Because you're dead. You can't then go to the future and back to the
I know
past.
what you're saying
Yeah.
because you still existed at that time frame.
No.
So I know, but just listen. Okay, so let's say you're a kid, you go into the future. I'm I'm 50 now, and I was like, oh, I don't feel like I should have lived back then. I go back in time, I can still kill myself, but I know what you're saying because then you weren't born, so you couldn't go to the future to go back in time and
Yeah.
kill yourself. But you're still you still made that timeline in the first place.
So yeah, that almost solidifies that you make a different timeline. So you got the original timeline, right?
Yeah,
The
I mean,
original one, you go back, and just like Doc demonstrates, you go back in time to let's say
whatever.
1985 or whatever. You know, sometimes somehow, let's say, let's not make it morbid where you kill yourself, but somehow something you do has an impact on your being. Let's say you die somehow in a car crash because you caused a big pileup or something. You're you
In the
know
past.
in the past self. So you're still if you're still alive at
At
any
that
time in the future, you're on a different timeline going into the future.
well, this is the normal timeline to begin with,
Yeah. This
and
is the
they're
normal
saying
timeline. This does not exist anymore.
after
As soon
you
as you go
change
back to the
it, to
past,
change it.
you're different. You're different. Like this timeline is no longer. It's gone. Because the way you transpired is now different. You're gone. It has to be a different timeline
Yeah,
now.
you're saying if something happened to me at this point.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, no,
No,
I agree with
it's an
that.
interesting piece. And
It's
then
just
you
like the
could talk
Wonderful
about
Life.
like different
It's just like Wonderful Life when he goes and then he doesn't make himself born,
yeah,
so he doesn't save his brother,
yeah,
and then he doesn't create his kids.
yeah.
He doesn't exist, and he's trying to find him,
That's
trying to
that's
find.
another interesting movie to even talk about. Maybe we talk about it on the future one. But and then on top of that, the new Doctor Strange, where you have the multiverse to deal with. How does that transpire into the timeline? You can switch dimensions and you can switch timelines.
Well,
You're opening
dimensions
up
is
yourself to so many different.
well, dimensions is different than time.
I know it's different, but like there's like we could be in the same like this could be happening and it could transpire differently in a different dimension. Like
I think it's
there's an unlimited amount of different
but
dimensions.
but let's say so we're in dimension one,
So they portray
and
yeah
then there's a dimension two, and somehow dimension one and two get crossed over at some point, and then but then if I change something that happened in dimension one, stuff in dimension two should still not change because it already happened within one and two.
yeah.
I think I don't
No, it's hard to
know.
think about. It
Yeah,
really is hard to think about because I think
I
Doctor
know what you're
Strange
saying.
really portrayed that really well because they made it to where that scene, particularly the scene where they're going through the different dimensions, they're in water. There's like colorful scenes. There's all these different scenes
Dimensions.
of them inside different dimensions.
Well, it's not them; it's different versions of them.
Yeah, different versions. Well, that's another interesting topic in itself. Is that them or different versions of
No,
them?
that's different
So
versions.
how is it that when they open up a dimension, he does this thing, he goes, whoop, you got a circle that you drive through to a different dimension. That's not you going to that dimension?
No, it is. But when he gets there, it's still different. Did you ever watch the new one?
Yeah, I'm talking about it.
Okay, okay, I'm just making sure. So, like in one dimension, he goes and meets himself, but it's a darker version of
Yeah, I do
himself.
remember that.
So
There's
that's a
a big plot in the movie
yeah. So that's a different version of him in
in
that
that
timeline.
dimension.
Yeah,
But when they travel through all those different dimensions, that is them going through those dimensions.
yeah,
There could be them in that dimension,
yeah.
but I think that opens up to another interesting piece in that in the dimensions, does there necessarily have to be a you in that dimension?
Well, there's not in some of the versions.
Exactly. So
Like
just in
just in Loki,
particular, they made it in that movie to have a darker self in that dimension.
I'm trying to
I mean,
remember.
it's hard to put together
Well, in
why they decided to do that.
one dimension he was dead, and then in another one he was
Okay,
semi.
we're going way off topic.
Not really. I mean, we
Well,
kind
I mean it is, but we're talking about
there is an
dimensions as
isn't.
opposed. Let's go back to
Let's go back to
let's go back to the Back to the Future. uh, some key ideas in this. Um, right now on the scene is the typical like school scene. Um,
Well, in this
what are
one,
some key ideas in the film?
I feel like ideas meaning like when Doc had this idea to make the flux compact faster
Yeah,
to go back in the future in the first place, and then him not really believing Marty that he's from the future.
yeah,
He
yeah.
thinks he's just some sales guy. Then he puts on that little helmet thing, and then he's like, "You know what this means, right?" And then he goes, "Let's say this damn thing doesn't work." That's what that means. I thought that was kind of funny.
I mean, what genre would you classify this film as?
Genre,
Yeah,
fantasy slash romance slash semi action. I wouldn't
yeah,
really
not so
put
much action.
so
There
much
is some
action.
action. I mean,
I'm
the gunfighting scene. I don't know, kind of. I like the fantasy. There's got to be some kind of fantasy to it. You have to make stuff up. Like the whole flux capacitor, that's a made up piece. Like that can't be real. I mean, it's probably a real thing to somebody somewhere, but we all know it from this film.
Well, what's funny is a lot of people think that the DeLorean's not a real
Okay,
car, but
number one. What is the climax of the film?
for this one,
Yeah.
the climax is when Marty's about him and his siblings are no more. It was at the when they go to the sea the under the Chairman Sea Dance. I forget what's actually what it's called. And he's about to be deleted from history where he's playing the guitar and he's looking at the picture on the guitar and he's starting to fade away, and then I felt like that was the climax because
Yes, I agree.
he was almost gone. And so, which was kind of weird to me, like, why wouldn't he be the first one gone though? Because he's the youngest.
Yeah.
So I would think he'd be the first one gone. 'Cause I think it's him, he's the youngest, and then it's his sister and his brother's the oldest.
So, on top of that, what themes are present in this movie? Just like so,
Well, you got
I could.
60 themes,
Well, yeah, it's definitely an
80s.
'80s. It's '80s
Well,
themed.
I know, but I mean, when they go back in time, it's more 60s.
Yeah, there's definitely '60s, but it's filmed in the '80s, so it's got
Oh,
definitely an
yeah,
'80s theme to it.
definitely.
I think it's really interesting that they portray different timelines, the way they portrayed how people lived in the '80s. Um,
Well, even
I
like the
just
second one, look how they went back to 2015.
yeah,
We're supposed to be flying cars. Did you know that? I
yeah,
didn't
and the
know that. I didn't get
advertisement's
the
supposed to be
memo.
popping out at you and stuff.
Yeah,
I mean,
Avatar. I mean,
it,
we do have 3D stuff,
yeah,
kinda.
yeah,
In a way, not like coming at you like by your head up, but
yeah, yeah.
I mean, they got 40 or whatever 7D movies or whatever they call them, where they spray you with water and.
But they had 3D TVs for the longest time that didn't really catch on
No, I
too.
know.
So I mean, I think this is just where we're at too with film. I think this is always going to kind of be the pace at how they portray it. I literally would like to see a three dimensional. You know what the GoPro, the 3D version of that is, where it films in three dimensions.
Uh,
Where let's say you're going down a mountain skiing, right? And you can put on a headset and be able to see three dimensional to what is going on around you.
like it looks
I
like
think,
realistic.
yeah, I think film should move in that direction. I think there's something to that. Now, as far as directing wise, I don't think we'll ever get to that because a director wants to portray a certain way on the screen, and through that, they need to manipulate and say, this is where you need to look at for this film to be effective to what I'm trying to portray. Will it ever take off? I don't think so. I think more like sporting events, plays, and such, where you can
Actually,
buy a ticket and be like front of the show. You know what I mean? Like have a three dimensional camera there where you can kind of
I can see
pan
some
your
of
head
those
to see what's
movies.
going on.
Like there was one I forget what it's called now, but there was like a skiing movie
I think there should be like
that could do that.
I think would really be interesting. That would be just like horror films. Doing a three dimensional like, isn't that what kind of draws you to those kind of films too? Would be like the suspense, something's going on, and the jump scare happens, right? Or you see something subtly in the back, and it's right there with you. If you're able to move around and pan where the screen is kind of where you can be the one that pans to see what's going on. and all of a sudden, bam, something's like right next to your head, right here.
or behind you.
Yeah, or behind you or something. I think that'd be
I
really
think they
interesting.
should have like a camera that pinpoints looking at you like you're kind of running away, and then it like pinpoints to go around and then it turns and something like comes out behind you. They could do that with Ghostbusters.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right, so moving on to more discussion.
Try to stay
I
on
think I
topic.
think we should move on to
Second one.
number two. Actually, what's what do you think about number one overall? What do you think about like the film in general?
Honestly, the first one's my favorite, just because it's the original. I mean, Michael J. Fox wasn't the first actor that has. I honestly forgot the other guy's name. Um, to me, the first one was just I don't know why. I mean, there's a storyline. There's
Without the first one's success, we don't get the second one or the third one. Honestly, I could do without the third one, but
I could
I
honestly do
still
about the
I
third one
still
too.
enjoyed number three, but it just
To me, the third
it
one
wasn't
was trying
definitely
too
was
hard.
yeah it definitely was trying too hard, but I still enjoyed watching it
Well,
at the
yeah, I
time.
mean, they were taking the concept of the first and second one, but then it's like they ran out of ideas, so they were just. I mean, how do you make a third one without trying to make a copy of the
Yeah,
first and second one?
how many number twos and number threes of actual films are actually worth a dang? We're gonna go through them, obviously.
Honestly, we got a few of them that we're gonna go through.
um, yeah, so moving on to number two. Number two is still my favorite. I like the intro scenes kind of staying the same. The dog feeding. That's another interesting point in the second one where the dog food just stacks up because they're gone. Wasn't that the case?
Um,
They have the contraption, that automatic dog food feeder.
yeah, you're talking about Einstein's
Yep,
dog bowl.
yep. The intro to the movie.
That's because I think they're gone.
They are gone, and that's just interesting how they keep that same timeline going. The same
Even
kind of theme is present throughout the first film and the second film, like that contraption scene, the diner scene, for instance. Um, a lot of mimicking of the movies in that regard.
well,
I,
they're
I
trying
like
to.
how they did that.
I,
They could have went a like they could have done something totally completely different from the other films,
I
but
feel
they
like
still have those main iconic scenes from number one on to number two.
well, like the cafe, they could have changed up a little bit more. Because I mean,
Yeah,
like they could have made it so that cafe wasn't there anymore.
they could have, but I like how they kept it. I like how they kept everything because this one, even this scene here, this is mimicking the other movie.
I
Like
mean, no, I like this because okay, so like you have a '60s diner
you know,
that that's still in the '80s. That makes sense to me. But like in the second one, they're still when he goes to 2015, that diner's still there
you know,
with a shooting handheld. Cause I don't remember if you remember Elijah Wood. He's the little kid, and he's like, this thing doesn't work. And then uh, freaking Marty goes out in there and shoots up all the bad guys. And he was like trying to make it look all cool. And then those two kids are like, it's a baby toy, even though they couldn't do it.
yeah, yeah. I like that too. Um,
I didn't like how they kept the diner though. I mean, like,
I
I
like it. I like it.
understand, I understand. Well, but they didn't change anything though. From the back to the '60s to the '80s, I can understand that not really changing. But when it went from '80 to 2015, like that
You're
diner,
saying like the diner should have been more updated,
yeah,
more like that modern time, that
yeah,
2015 projected
yeah,
timeline of. They did kind of do it though in a way. I mean,
kind
they
of. I
they
mean, they had the
they had the
TVs.
machines. They tried.
I mean, they could have
But
tried harder.
from the 60s to the 80s, did the diners really change that much? People still like going to the
That's what.
old
But
old
that's
style diners, and that to them back in 2000, what they projected in 2015.
2015.
I want to go back to the
Well,
classic diner.
yeah, and I guess that's what it was based on. It was based on '80s diner.
Yeah, so I mean, maybe the 80s diners were probably more associated back then to when they actually had those style of diners, the
No,
the
yeah,
checkerboard floors, the
yeah.
the certain seating styles and
I
whatnot.
forgot about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
no,
wasn't a
it's an interesting concept. I mean, were they portraying it accurately? That's another thing to be debated because I don't know. It's so interesting to see how they portrayed 2015 in general. I think that's what makes number two so great.
or how they portray all.
Yeah, yeah, how
So
they portray all that.
was I mean they had flying cars,
Yeah,
which
flying
we still
cars.
don't have
We
to
don't
this
have.
day in this 2022.
Yeah, yeah.
They had 3D projection things that came out. Yeah, we still don't have that, and we have 3D stuff, but it doesn't. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, some rides feel like it's coming at you, I guess, but not like that. Not like, and even then, policies and procedures back then versus now.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, in the second one, he never meets his mom. Still, still gonna go against her on that one.
That's fine. That's fine. You have your point of view. I have mine. I mean, I'm not saying number one is wrong, but
The only time he meets his mom is in the future. Is that what you mean?
no.
You're talking
In the
about
second one, I want to say he had potential to meet his mom in one of the scenes, and it wasn't in the future. It was in the present
past.
time. It was in that present time, if I remember right.
Well, see, he never was in the present though in the second one.
Yes, it was.
The second one, Doc Brown comes and gets him. And they go to the future. And then Biff takes the time machine with the almanac, goes back in time and changes it. Marty goes straight from the future to the past. He never goes to the present. Well, he does. He goes to the present, and then that's when he finds out Biff changed everything. And then he
Yeah,
went from the
that's what
present
I mean.
to the
That's that point
past.
there. I think where
He meets his mom.
uh, I can't remember what time period it was in, but it was when
It was the present when she
I want to say,
redid her knockers and stuff.
yeah,
When
yeah.
she remarried Biff, because George was
Okay,
dead.
yep, yep. I
And
think
that
that's
in
it.
that time frame. That's the only
Well,
time I remember him actually meeting his mom in the second one.
all right, so moving on to the extra real theme, what do you think is a good what's a good critique of all these films? What do you think they should have done better?
I mean, it's the 80s. I mean, there's a lot of stuff they could have done better.
Yeah.
I mean,
You think they did the best with what they had?
for what they had, I think they did a good movie. Like the first and second one, I feel like the second one, I like the first one better. You like the second one better.
Yeah.
I know why you like the second one better. I think it's kind of, I feel like that shouldn't be a good reason why I like the second one, but I mean, it is what it is. I feel like the second one still had a story to it. The third one does too, but like it was just so out there that to me, the third one they just tried to.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I, I haven't watched the third one as much. Uh,
Well, like the
I guess
second one, well, in the first and second one, Marty has a dad, and it's George, and his mom Lorraine. It's always been the same. And then they go back to the past, and Lorraine's like their great grandmother. Not so she's, Lorraine's not. You think you think blood, you think all the males should look like the males. So it makes sense for Marty to look like his grandfather in the third one.
yeah,
But then where's George come from? Because
yeah,
him and George look nothing alike. But then the mom looks exactly the same in all three movies.
yeah. I think to move this into like the big story we're all in, like speaking of like grandfathers and how many generations back, you still have a little bit of that blood in you and the DNA that you have. Like I think this has a lot of factors in that too. You kind of start to think about your lineage and
Oh
how
yeah,
your
I
timeline
feel like it does.
came to be.
I feel like it makes you want to look up your history more too.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe know a little bit
And
of
I
your
know
lineage,
why.
where your ancestors came
And I
from.
honestly know why they did do the way that they did the third one. It's because I can't remember his name now. The guy that plays George, he didn't. He wasn't in the second one. I don't know if you knew that.
I don't recall.
Well, see, they got his double ganger, the guy that does all the stunts.
Yeah,
his name now? It's like Glover. Anyways, they couldn't get him to play the dad in the second one, and so they had someone that kind of looked like him play in the second one. So in the third one, they didn't have him at all. So instead of having that guy that played the dad, I think that's why they just did Marty McFly. This guy, put the crap out of
Oh,
there.
that's all good.
But yeah, this guy, he didn't want to do the second one.
So I think we should transition into special effects and
My bad.
what camera techniques and special effects do they use in these films that made them so great?
I mean, you got when they go back in time with the little sparks, and I'm sure that was all.
Yep. The
I mean,
lightning, the electricity. I think it was really interesting how they portrayed like the lightning kind of slower than what it actually is. When you see lightning, it's like, boom, it's right now. It's like split second.
well, especially the
Yeah.
clock striking.
Yep. So they struck the lightning, and then
You can see
you
the
can see
whole,
it. It kind of just happens,
and that would never
and then the
happen.
fire that they laid out. I think it's real fire. I don't know if that's
No, that's
as
real
far
fire.
as like special effects that they had. They pretty much had to do a lot more realistic things than fake things. CG
The
wasn't there
lighting,
back then.
I think the lighting was fake. They didn't do a CGI, but it was like a different type of layover effect type thing.
Yeah.
Just like Ghostbusters did with Slimer. They did like a scene of something like probably electricity in the background or something, and they just put it on top or
And I
something.
think that's another piece to talk about is the scenes where they didn't do CG and they portrayed some of the future scenes. Um, self-tying shoes. That wasn't CG. They had to have made something for that.
I'm sure it was like
Self-tying coat. I mean, they probably did a lot of like rigging up.
claymation.
Well, just like rigging up to make it work and make it look like it was automatic. Like
I
you know how
wouldn't.
you can hide wires and such or do different things.
I'm sure it was wires.
Yeah,
The only other thing I could think of is they did a time
well,
frame thing
different motors that are hidden, different items. Like I'm sure the jacket, it was probably just
or
a leaf,
vacuum.
some kind of leaf blower behind him to blow up his jacket, so it makes it look like
I
it's
think
a
it was
self
strings.
drying.
I think it was strings. I think you're right. Where they probably just had a string in the background, pulled it, and
Yeah,
then
you say for the self tying shoes.
well, even that too.
Yeah,
For both that and the jacket, I
yeah,
think
like there was something that was there
that
to
they
activate it.
pulled.
It wasn't true to a
Oh
self
yeah,
tying
yeah.
shoe. It was
No,
something that they made for that scene.
I'm just the shoe they did like maybe claymation where they just took a bunch of frames together and then made it zip up.
Maybe I
Maybe
don't think so. I think they
I would
did.
have to rewatch that one again.
Yeah, I think they did probably make something
Just like
just
a
for that scene. Like they had that
string.
shoe and they rigged up something to portray that scene
No, I know,
specifically.
but like the Nightmare Before Christmas is all claymation, and so they take different time frames of each, of them moving in a certain way, and they just did it really fast. So I feel like they made it up with the shoe.
Yeah,
I could be
they
wrong
know
with
they could
that.
have done that. That would be another way to think about it doing it. Like just do like 30 frames a second. You just do 30 frames of you kind of tying the
Time
shoe a
frame.
little bit, tightening it a little further and further
And
every
I could be
frame.
wrong. They could have just did string too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure the jacket. My favorite, one of my favorite parts is he walks in the first one. He walks in with his his vest, and they go, "Are you in the National Guard?" Because then I used to see a big, huge orange
Yeah.
back in the '80s. Oh yeah, and this part where he's rigging up where the cars get hit the wire so you can go back in time.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then he's like, "Oh, it's a weather experiment." He's
Yeah.
like, "Do you have a thing for?"
And that's an exciting part too, an exciting detail in the film where he had to have known precisely when that lightning strike was
They
going to
do.
occur. Exactly, that's what I'm trying to say. It's like that's a very
Oh
good
yeah.
part. He went to the future to know that happened at that time because it was a famous.
No, he never went to the future. So in the past, when he was with his girlfriend, he was by the clock tower, and she hands him the pamphlet that says when the clock tower was hit and like the time and everything.
But somebody would have to have gone to the future to know that.
You
You
mean?
know what I mean? Like
You mean into
they
the
knew
past?
precisely
You mean
when
the
to go
past?
into like to get the DeLorean to work. They had to have known that time that lightning was going to strike. I understand that he's got the pamphlet that explains it all, but just that I'm just talking about this,
Oh, the math.
that detail in general.
You're talking about like the math to hit it at the exact time.
No, not necessarily the math. I'm just saying that detail. That we're talking about time travel
Yeah.
and knowing that that is the time. Somebody would have to have gone into the future to find out that time.
What do you mean?
What is there to know?
Like, what do you
I'm
mean
just
by
talking about
time?
that detail.
I know, but what do you mean by time?
So the lightning striking the clock tower.
Yeah, they
You
knew what
don't know that if you're in the past. You don't know when lightning's going to strike.
they
Somebody
knew
had to have gone into the future to know that scene was going to occur or that lightning strike was going to occur.
in the pamphlet. It says what time and what day
How
it
do they
is.
get the pamphlet?
'Cause someone saw it hit the clock. Someone had to see it. I know what you're
Somebody
saying.
had to have been in the future and known that because that was in a news article that said, "Oh, it struck at this time."
It wouldn't be in the future though. That'd be in the past. Because the past is when it hit the clock tower.
Yeah, so somebody went into the future to read about the past.
They never went to the future. That
Somebody
clock,
somebody had
the
to.
clock was already disabled at that time in the present. Because
Okay,
he's in the past right now.
so right now they're in the past and they're
Yeah,
working towards getting into
into
the
the future.
future, right? They're going to go into the future. They're going to get
Yeah,
that big power strike from that lightning, and it's going to power the DeLorean so they can do whatever they
yeah.
need to
He's got
do.
that pamphlet that says when the clock's gonna hit, what day, what time, and
Yep.
everything.
And somebody had to go into the future to read about the past when that lightning strike was going to happen.
Yeah, he's already in the. Technically, he's already in the future though, because he's in the present day when he got the pamphlet. That's why I'm not
How did he
understanding.
get the pamphlet?
He got it from the girl that gave it to him. The girl, they already knew the time and the place. That's why I'm not understanding.
I know you're not understanding. I'm just trying to portray the certain detail that says they had to have known that lightning strike was going to happen to then
A
use that
millisecond.
power to use that against the DeLorean. You can't, without going into the future to learn about that time period, you cannot do it.
You mean the past?
They don't go into the past to learn about the lightning strike. You have to go into the future to learn about the lightning strike that's about to happen. So, for
But
instance,
the lightning
so let me
strike
explain it
happened
to
in the
you.
past though.
Let me explain it to you this way.
Okay.
How are you going to predict when the next lightning strike is going to happen?
From past lightning
this
strike.
this timeline, this timeline. Let's say there's a thunderstorm rolling
Well, now
next
they have
Wednesday.
Dopplers and
Yeah,
stuff.
but you even if with the Doppler, you don't know where that lightning strike is going to happen. So, in order for you to know that lightning strike, you would have to go into the future to learn about when that lightning strike would have happened. Like somebody would have had to have documented this second at this time it struck this place.
Yeah, but they already knew it happened from the past. So then that's why they have the pamphlet. They knew what time where it was gonna hit.
It's not about the past though. It's about the future. You need to know about the future to know when that lightning strike is going to happen.
But
I mean, you can use past occurrences to predict the future, but you're still not going to be able to know when that lightning strike is going to happen right now.
he calculates it.
But he has to. He had to have like here's the big detail for me is he has to know when and where that lightning strike has to happen. So it's almost like he had some material from the future to learn about that event.
Yeah, the pamphlet. I know.
Yeah, I know, I know.
There is other stuff that doesn't make sense though
We
because
went off on a tangent, but
I know.
my whole structure behind that discussion
Well, that's
was
what I was trying to understand.
to put that detail into perspective that that already that just like it's a key point to the film is time travel, and he had to have known that that was going to happen for that
He
to happen.
calculates it though.
I know he calculates it and he figures out the time and he has the clock kind of coincide with what's going to happen and he times it all out for when he's going to start and how it gets captured
But I
and
do
all
know what
that.
you're saying though, because it doesn't make sense because what's to say it hits the hour hand or the minute hand?
Well, my whole point behind that was it's the time travel of knowing when that's going to happen.
Yeah, but they never go. I know what you're saying. They never go in the future.
Somehow they had like somehow that information had to have gotten out to where that happens. Okay, let's move forward and
Maybe Doc Brown put Was
we're
in the
gonna
future, went back to
we're
the
gonna
past.
skip number three. I think discussion on number three is gonna be kind of hard to get discussion.
Why is that?
I don't think there's much to discuss on number three. I mean, no, it's a good film to watch. I would definitely suggest watching it if you like the other ones. Um, what's for you the plot? What makes it a good film?
The third
Go
one.
go ahead and describe the plot.
So the third one, I mean, I never. I mean, I just feel like it was. I wouldn't say it was a great movie, but the third one was basically Marty going back in time to save his friend from dying. This is the plot for me. He goes because he finds out that Doc dies in the past
And correct me if I'm wrong. That's the one where the train is the time
later
piece.
on. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, later. Yeah. So, Doc's. I don't remember why, but Doc went back to the past for some reason. Basically, get a break, and then the time machine doesn't work.
yeah.
So then he leaves instructions for Marty to find stuff in the present to help him get back in time so that he can save them. So
And,
then,
and the theme is like more of a Western theme from what I
yep,
remember.
yep.
It's like Cowboys and Indians era. They kind of time travel into a big traveling scene of people and kind of chaotic. I think that theme kind of does it for me. I like they don't go extreme and go back to like
I thought it was funny he uses Clint Eastwood as a name.
yeah yeah. But I like how they chose that theme. It was just something different for that time period. Uh, I mean, they could have went back prehistoric time and then just been like, okay, we're screwed because there's no resources here to really do anything. But they went to a time period where there
But
is
there's
somewhat of a
some of a change,
there's somewhat of an industrialized society that they can kind of piece together something
which I
to.
never understood how they did get the train to go 88. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
think that would ever
No,
really
it
happen.
makes an interesting scene. I uh, that's where I'm kind of like that's it for me. Like that concept, I like it. The writer did a good job, but I just my final thoughts would be just good job. You did made a good film. That's it for me.
Well, oh no, I remember now. So he left the time machine for Marty, but then Marty saw he was gonna die, and then he finds him in that. Does he find him in that present, and then it's like you're gonna die in the past? How the fuck does he go back in the past, anyways? I forget. Cause I think he talks to Doc Brown, and then he's like, "You're gonna die in the past," and then he drives into the screen, and he's like, "Ah," and it's a bunch of
Yeah,
Indians. And then he hides in the cave, and then
yeah,
he's in there wearing all pink, and his boots are like
yeah, sticking out like
nothing,
yeah,
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 nothing like a
yeah.
Western.
It's pretty funny. I like that. I like that part too. I think we should move on to the our next trilogy. Um,
One, Indiana Jones, or
Indiana Jones. Not to spoil it or anything. Indiana Jones is our next film we're going to discuss. So for the first film, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
really four.
Um,
We talked about
Harrison
this
Ford.
before,
Yeah, we did talk about it a little bit
but
before.
someone deleted our video.
Yeah, got erased. What are your initial thoughts? The plot. What do you think?
Um, I liked the first one. That was my favorite one. Um, sets up the story, sets up characters, sets up. The first one just does it for me.
I'll read the back here. Join the legendary hero Indiana Jones in one of the greatest screen adventures of all time, now on DVD. Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark. His digital surround sound, accompanied by his feisty, independent ex-flame, Marion Ravenwood. The two the two-fisted archaeologists embark on a thrilling quest to locate the mystic Ark of the Covenant.
Oh, maybe she's an archaeologist.
Indy must discover the Ark before the Nazis do, and he has to
Anyway,
survive poison traps, snakes, and treachery to do so.
thanks
Explore the
everybody for
darkest
snakes.
jungles of South America, the bustling marketplace of Cairo, and a top secret submarine base with Indiana Jones as your guide to adventure. And finally, witness the power of the Lost Ark unleashed as Indy stays one step ahead of the Nazis in this classic treasure on DVD.
You're
Um,
never one step ahead of the Nazis.
I mean, that's what makes the film great. That trope, you fight the Nazis. You know,
Oh
who's
yeah,
gonna like the Nazis? You gotta be against them. You're for Harrison Ford and completing his goals.
unless you were a Nazi.
I in the same line as Back to the Future for me, it's the first one. Without the first one, you don't get the second one, but I still like the second one the best. Second one is my favorite. It has a lot there to grasp. But we're talking about the first one now. The Lost Ark. Tell us about the Lost Ark. What does the Lost Ark do? Why is he going after the Lost Ark?
Um, he so these guys meet him at his college to talk about finding the lost ark. And there was some he knew some of it, but there was some information that he needed to find it, and these guys were able to get him on that track to help him find it. So then he goes. I forget where he's at this time, but basically he finds the ark, but then the Nazis take it away from him, and they end up recording it at the end. I don't know how much more I
What
can
does
put.
the Ark look like?
So, well, you can go by biblical, and what well they go by biblical. It's a big, huge box with two. I guess I don't know if they're really. I don't know if they're really eagles, but they're or angels, but there's two bird type things on each end. The whole thing's supposed to be made of gold. And then once you open it, it's supposed to contain this big, huge something. They don't know what if it's divine power, if it's whatever. They don't really know what the arc really has.
That kind of is the mystery behind it that
Yeah,
keeps you watching
yeah.
to see what it is.
And they kind of give you a. They don't even show you a glimpse of it, even at the end when you find out what happens.
Yeah, yeah, and
You see
that's
them opening it, and then it is all,
yeah,
pretty much die.
correct. Yeah, yeah. Um, there is a famous scene in this film, the grabbing that monkey statue or whatever it is, and then running away from the boulder. Like,
It's not really a monkey, but he
well,
looks
whatever,
like a monkey.
whatever
Yeah,
the golden statue is, and
you know,
he's got
bag of
the
sand.
bag of sand,
I,
grabs it,
I do
puts
like
it on there.
I do like how he like sitting there trying to figure out the what would weigh, and he like even takes out a little sand,
Yeah, yeah.
just like, oh,
All right,
I think
that's
I
it.
think,
That's how much it weighs. Yeah,
and it's
and
like,
then
how do you know how much it weighs?
you haven't even picked it up. You don't know how much it weighs.
Well, I mean, you don't have time because he knew that there was a pressure plate there,
Yep, yep. You have.
so
I
he
mean,
was
that's the
just
whole point. But then
yeah,
the boulder comes, and a lot of pop culture behind that. There's been a lot of recreations of
recreations.
that. Like it's a pretty iconic scene. I think that's Indiana Jones in a nutshell. These nice recreations and pop culture influences.
Well, yeah, you always picture him with the hat, the
Yep,
whip, the satchel.
yep. He's
I mean,
an adventurer. Harrison Ford, he did a good job. I like how he portrayed Indiana Jones. Um, like I said, the first one it was good. Um, without the first one, you don't get the second one. Second one's still the best for me. I
only good one. The only thing is good that came out of the second one was Kurt Round and Dan Aykroyd is in that
yeah.
one.
I mean I get that. I get that. I mean the second one there's
And
just
honestly, a lot of people don't even know that Dan
I think
Aykroyd is in the second
you
one.
know how fantasy like this film is. I think the second one takes that fantasy to the next level. The first one, you know, the Lost Ark. Let's be honest, is there's probably nothing realistically about the Lost Ark.
Up
The
till them finding the Lost Ark. I mean, I
Yeah,
can see
exactly.
them finding
Well,
something,
exactly. It's
but
more realistic. There wasn't much fantasy to it besides like the mysticalness
or
of the Lost Ark. Like they did a good job of doing that.
make it more realistic.
Whereas like moving on to the second one, there's a ton of fantasy in that one. Like
He still debunks it though.
okay, so there's still unbelievable scenes in the first one. One that stuck out to me in the second one is jumping out of the plane and landing in a freaking life
Life
saving
craft.
raft. Like that is pretty unbelievable. There's no way that happens, but they portrayed it as like, I mean,
I get what you're
it's
saying.
more realistic,
I
but
was
it's
thinking you meant like I
impractical.
was thinking you meant like design, like
Oh no,
art.
yeah, that too, that too. I mean, like superhero nature of I was going more towards like
No, I
superhero
understand now.
status
Yeah,
type
like
stuff.
jumping
Like
off a plane
yeah,
with a
like being able to
lifer.
survive with a life raft. That's kind of unbelievable, but it's not supernatural. It's just not natural.
It depends how
The
far
first one, how many? So in your opinion, how many supernatural pieces are there in the first one?
him running away from the rock, him almost getting
Okay,
shot by the doors.
that's not really supernatural though. Those are things that are kind of just that could be in real life. Like you can have a boulder in real life coming,
Yeah,
but
but you don't know how fast that bullet is really gonna
okay,
run.
so to
I
like,
feel like they still.
I think we should discuss more of like so in the third one, the Last Crusade, the supernatural aspect of drinking from the Holy Grail and becoming immortal. How many of those type of pieces are there in the first one?
Just the art.
Just the arc. See, that's I think they did a good job with that. I think
No, I
it
know,
makes
I did too.
yeah
I liked, I liked the whole realisticness of Indiana Jones up until the Crystal Skull. The Crystal
yeah.
Skull, they
We're not
did.
discussing that one. We're just gonna bypass that one.
I felt like they did go a little
they
beyond. I mean, I they were trying to be realistic, but then they did. I mean, it was more fantasy than it
yeah
was
yeah
realistic.
definitely felt more
Like you're
more
saying like Indiana Jones 1, 2, and 3. There's a possibility like a lot of this could happen,
yeah
whereas Crystal Skull was completely.
yeah. It's not gonna happen.
I mean,
There's
there was some
like
stuff that could happen,
there's
but
some crazy
for the
scenes.
most part, it was yeah pretty
Do
crazy.
you have any good takeaways from the first one that you want to talk about?
Uh, Takeaways I get from the first one is, I mean, without one, you don't get the other two or
Yeah,
three.
you said number one is your favorite though. What makes it your favorite?
Um, the first one why it makes it my favorite. I mean, you got a story, you got a hero, you got the damsel. I mean, in this one, I feel like the girl actually pulls her weight. As in the second one, she doesn't at all. She just sits there and whines and complains, and I feel like she doesn't do anything to really make that movie any better, except for her
In the
line.
second one
Yeah,
or
the
the
second
third
one.
one, let's say.
Well, even
The first one, she pulls her weight. She
the first
contributes
one, she
more to the adventure
adventure
and not being just
and Susie.
well, yeah, just like not contributing to the story, the adventure,
I mean,
having to be more of a hindrance. And I think that's what kind of makes more of the plot in the other ones though too almost better because he has to try that much harder because they're not putting in any effort into
well, the third
helping
one,
themselves
well, even
almost.
the third one, she helps him more,
Yeah, yeah.
even though but it was for I don't know if anybody watched the third one, but she's a Nazi.
Spoiler alert,
Spoiler, yeah. She's
it's
she's
full of spoilers.
she's a Nazi, but I feel like she still put some effort to where this girl. I understand what you're saying. They had to make it so like he had to try hard. I
Add
mean,
add
and he
to
does have a sidekick.
it adds
You
to
got
the
Short Round,
suspense. Yeah, yeah.
which I feel like Short Round was a good addition though.
That's always been kind of the movie trope though that somehow like for instance, Home Alone. Like you have the in the first Home Alone, he goes through everything and they have all the traps, and at the end they catch him, and then the old man that he was always kind of scared of comes in and bonk saves him. That's always been kind of like the movie trope of like um, you have just like these one-off characters you kind of interact with for just maybe let's say a few minutes, 5 minutes or so, and then later on maybe they come and help you out if you're in a jam somewhere along the line. I think those are interesting movie tropes.
Well, yeah, this that Marilyn helps him out in Crystal Skull. She comes back
Yeah,
in four and helps him again. And this time, spoiler alert again, they have a kid together, and where Shia LaBeouf was basically his son.
yeah.
And his name is actually Indy Junior, and he doesn't like being
Junior.
called Indy, so then they call him Mud or
Yeah.
something like that. I think it was Mud.
Besides the point. Well, let's move on from the first one.
Go to the second one.
Let's go to the second one.
Your favorite
My
movie,
favorite,
even though I don't agree.
The Temple of Doom. Now, it's along the same lines. Um, we
Storyline.
have some satanic type stuff going on. You got short stuff, right?
Short round.
Short round. Sorry, I don't know why I said short stuff. And then yeah, just a few different characters in it.
I do like the kid in that. I do like he brings, even though like the girl, she just doesn't do anything. Short round at least has some sort of like something to bring to the table. It
Yeah,
might not be a lot, but something. Like he
yeah,
can
yeah.
drive and he can like, hey Indy, Dr. Jones, no more parachutes. I mean, he brings something to the table where the
Yeah,
girl's just like, oh my freaking god, we can't do anything. There's just
yeah, yeah. You want to do that? Yeah, yeah. Indiana Jones brings his
oh, I just
darkest, most chilling adventure to DVD like never before, thanks to the wonders of frame by frame digital restoration and remastering to an immersive 5.1 digital surround sound. Follow the legendary hero on one cliffhanger to another in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. After barely escaping a raging Shanghai nightclub brawl, Indy crashes into the wild of India, where he uncovers a sinister scheme that has enslaved a remote village's children in a fortress-like mine. Indy must save the children and avoid becoming a slave himself to the evil thuggy cult. Along for the raucous rescue attempt is Indy's pint-sized sidekick, Short Round, as well as the reluctant nightclub songbird, Willie Scott. Join Indy as he outwits bloodthirsty villains and experiences the spectacular twists and turns of a thrilling car mine chase in the ultimate roller coaster adventure on DVD. That's the Temple of Doom. I'm going to tell you right now, I love some of the scenes in this film. It's that cult like portrayal that they have that does it for me. It's super unrealistic, but it just adds a
I
lot to it.
mean, but it was still realistic in a way. Like they made it like it was magical in a way,
Yeah.
but then there's still science behind it, and they figured that out. Like whereas in the Crystal Skull, there's no. I mean, there is some reasoning behind why the guy acts all crazy and stuff, but it's not as realistic as like this, where it's.
So
I think it's a plan or something that makes him crazy, or I forget what it really. It's something in that sense where it's something that actually causes them to go crazy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you're saying when Harrison Ford became like this evil guy towards the end. I think some of the scenes for me in this one, the tank scene. I don't know if you remember the tank scene in this film. Um, they just get into the fight with the Nazis, and he's sitting there hanging off the barrel of the tank, and he's trying to crush him into the wall. I just love that scene where there's like a lot of
I think
suspense.
that's the third
Sorry,
one.
that is the third one. I'm off on that one.
The second one, they're basically it's kind of the Chinese. So
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It is a little different, but they're still facing some. They don't have any Nazis in this one. That's right. That's only in
it's
the
just
first and the third one.
yeah,
So this one's all
first, third,
all that
and the
kind of
fourth.
like that cult that yeah. Um, what was that scene? That's super iconic. The pulling out the heart of one of the sacrifices.
Yeah,
Galima,
Kalima
Galima.
or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Um,
It's a fun film.
I'm my favorite part is at the beginning, actually, when he does meet the girl, unfortunately, but uh, he gets poisoned, and then but then he's able to get um, the cure. He gets out of there thinking he's safe. Gets on a plane, only to realize that the guy that just almost killed him owns the plane.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember that part, but he gets on the plane and he's like, "See you later," and then they shut the door, and then the guy starts laughing,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's why it was because
That's
that
why they
guy.
gotta jump out and
Yep,
survive a fall in
yep.
a freaking life raft. Yeah, that's pretty funny. I like that.
I did like
I,
that part where like, "Oh, well, we got away," and then they shut the door, and he's like, "That's what you think?"
yeah, I like that too. That's a good point in the film. Um, leading up to how did they learn about the cult then? Because it
Um,
says it takes place in India.
yeah, so I don't. They crash land on that land, and then the villagers. He gets into that village, and then they're the ones that basically ask for his help to get
Their
their
children.
precious gems, their
Oh
gems
yeah,
back.
the
Those
three.
three gems,
Yep,
because those other satanic people have it,
yep.
and so I don't know if it's the same. It's another king he goes and talks to. It's a kid, and he gets in a trance from that cult. And I think it's a. I'm pretty sure it's a. I'm not. Don't quote me, but I think it's a plant that they crush. They like makes them
Hallucinate or something. Yeah.
hallucinate to where they are almost like mind controlled.
Yep. Yep.
And then that's that part where you're talking about the ta and he rips.
Yeah.
I think he
Yeah.
does like
Girl gets
punch him
captured. I remember she's getting lowered
lowered
into the
into the
lava.
lava.
He's the one that's actually doing it because he's under some mind control, and then
Yep.
somehow he
Indiana
flips it
Jones does.
back and
Short round I think was trying to get his
snaps him
attention.
out of it. Like the
Something like
Jones,
that.
like the Jones.
Something like that. I want to say, or she did. I don't know. They just. I think it was short round that kind of got him out of it somehow.
Yeah.
Like the power of friendship
Yeah. Yeah.
gets him out of it
Yep.
somehow.
Yeah, it's pretty unique. I mean, that's another aspect is they take that character and he's not in the third one.
Oh, short round.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what
Same
happened.
thing. I mean, he's just kind of Indiana Jones kind of portrayed as a womanizer because he's like, I'm going to adventure with this girl. Okay, new film, new actress. I'm going to adventure with
With
this
this girl.
girl. And it's like, okay, no, moving on, going to the next one. Got a new adventure.
I think
I
short round was only because it was in. I mean,
it kind of
I'm not trying to be racist,
the
but he's
culture of India kind of helps him kind of integrate more with that
trying to
film.
film.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, he starts off. I think he's in China, and then he goes in a plane. And I think he was trying to fly back to the states
yeah.
or
And
something.
I think
Don't quote me
they
on that
do a
one.
good job of kind of like, okay, he's probably got that aspect to him to where he's traveling all over the world to do these different adventures anyway. So I mean, you're meeting all sorts of different people throughout the world. Short round being one of them. In the Shanghai
But
scene.
I mean, they explain how he meets them, but they never show you how he meets them. I
Yeah,
think it's been kind of a cool, like, pretty cool how they met. How he meets.
maybe. I don't know.
They're not gonna
I
really.
kind of like it how they don't kind of portray any of that. You just kind of they're friends.
Well, no,
You know
he
they're friends
gives.
because they're in the nightclubs together and they're
Well,
helping each other
there
out.
was a story behind it.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
He tried pickpocketing him or something like that, and
Oh,
then
sure.
he caught him, and then ever since they were like basically friends or something like
Any takeaways for you in this film?
that. Yeah, the takeaway is don't get involved with blonde
Yeah.
woman. She's annoying. Give yourself a friend because you never know when that guy will come to your rescue.
Yeah. I like the satanic scenes in this. I think that uh, the mine scenes, the uh, cart going through those kind of
Tunnels.
chases. Yeah, those were kind of fun to watch.
That was in this movie.
The whole time they were in this film, it was a roller coaster ride to say the least. Like the film kind of says, like the roller coaster ride. Honestly, the number two film. So Temple of Doom is my favorite. The number two film for me is the third film in the series.
Mine goes 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, you don't like the third one at all.
As, as a third one.
You like it as number three.
As
You
a
still liked watching it though.
No, it was a good one. I thought Sean Connery did a good
Yeah.
father role.
I like that beginning scene. It kind of goes back
I
to the
feel
past.
like they
It kind
should.
of gets that flame in him. It portrays that flame to be an adventurer in that first scene. You know, the whole on the train fighting those bad guys, and then coming back and Sean
I
Connery's his dad. No way. How the hell's that
I
happen?
still feel like they should have made Sean Connery like more of a badass. I mean, he's already a badass,
Yeah, I
but
think
like he
it's
really
more.
doesn't do anything
Yeah,
in the first
maybe in
film.
his past he would have been a badass,
Yeah,
but they portrayed him as more of like this wealth of knowledge to be able to pass on to Indiana Jones. Because that's how he gets
Yeah.
it. That book is his father's book. It has all the
No,
the last crusade is based off of what his father's work was.
yeah, I mean, I just know Sean Connery is 007.
Yeah,
And so used to seeing that person in a certain role.
yeah.
And I felt like he had that tone, but he just never
And
showed
maybe
it.
that's that character that they wanted to portray in the film. Like, obviously, he's a little older from the 007 films, but the people that did like Sean Connery probably liked him from the 007 films. And they view him as that badass. But, like, I agree with you. He doesn't portray himself as a badass in this film.
I feel like they still could have portrayed him some of that, like
Yeah.
some sort of fighting scene
Yeah,
where he,
maybe. Maybe. I don't know. He's still old in this one. I
yeah,
mean,
but he was
rest in
old
peace.
and
He just recently passed away. So, I mean, this was filmed in the
earlier.
90s.
He was probably like in his late 60s or early
Yeah,
70s,
so he
maybe.
was already pretty old in
No, I
this film.
know, but he was old and an extraordinary gentleman. He still kicked butt in that film.
Yeah, true, true.
I just felt like they could have made him more. He was a badass, but they could have made him a little bit more
Yeah,
badass.
I agree. I agree. I can agree with that. Um,
But I
but
did like
without
how
that,
they did do Sean Connery as his father. I thought
yeah,
that was
Sean
cool.
Connery, one of my favorite lines, and I'm gonna say it again. Junior, we named the dog Indy. That's one of my favorite lines. I don't know. It's just
For people that don't know, Indiana Jones is actually not his real name.
yeah. I don't know.
Spoiler
I
alert.
don't know why they decided on the third film to portray that. That's really interesting.
Um, what's his dad's real name? Does it say on the movie? Like what his dad?
I don't know. Is their last name even Jones?
Yeah, their last name is Jones.
So relive the fun and excitement of keeping up with the Joneses in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade on DVD. Now digitally restored and remastered frame by frame for the ultimate picture and featuring sweeping 5.1 digital surround sound in a prologue that reveals the young Indiana Jones, River Phoenix, in one of his first adventures.
But they give his
This
name.
thrilling screen epic continues as an adult Indy. Harrison Ford embarks on a perilous quest for the cantankerous father, Professor Henry Jones
Oh, yeah,
Sr. There
Henry.
it is, Henry
So
Jones.
he'd be Henry
So,
Jr.
what is Indiana Jones's?
He'd be
So he's
Henry
Henry
Jr.
Jones
Jr.
Jr. Junior Henry. So his name is Henry.
Doesn't listen.
So yeah, Henry Jones. I'll finish reading that just because I'm already there. The Nazis are all on their trail for the Holy Grail and have kidnapped Indy's father, the foremost authority on the cup of Christ. Follow Indy as he inches through the rat-filled catacombs of Venice, battling Nazi flying aces in a thrilling biplane dogfight and braves the thunderous firepower of an unstoppable tank. And behold, the Holy Grail's power to give
Here's your
take
tank
life.
scene.
Yeah, that's the same scene I was describing. As Indy and his father race against time in a timeless classic on DVD. Yeah, great film. I don't know. It's just I'm gonna go back to that tank scene. I love that tank scene. There's a lot of dramatic pieces to it. You know, the weaponry of the time. You know, if there's actual gunfights to be had, you know, it's so unrealistic. You're gonna take some shots from some guns, even if it's the older era. You know, there's still some.
They don't
Um,
want the bad. They don't want the good guy getting hurt.
yeah, yeah, no, that's how they portray it.
That's
It's like
why it is Star Wars.
it's the
All the
Star Wars all over again. You got
stormtroopers
stormtroopers. You know, oh, hey, he's right there. Shoot over here.
were sitting right next to him.
No, it's good. That scene in particularly, I like the drama behind it. You know, like you said, they got Harrison Ford, not Harrison Ford, the
Sean Connery.
Sean Connery. He's in the tank pretty much the whole time, just like okay,
Not
this is
doing
whatever.
anything.
I'm not doing
He's just
anything.
hiding.
Yeah, but there was a point where he did help out.
He did help.
He did help out, but like you said, it's not the badass that he would portray in
Portraying like
Double O
007.
Seven. Yeah,
I feel like he could still, even in the tank, like he could. Oh, let me get on the gunner or something.
yeah,
Like
do
he just.
something, do something.
Oh, I'll hide here
Yeah,
because I'm
yeah,
a whip
yeah. No,
kind of thing. I mean, I understand the whole
interesting
knowledge.
pick. Definitely,
I'm
definitely a big controversy in the film to pick him as the character when he did
he's a
play a
badass.
badass 007 character. 007, I think it has a lot of uh, mimicking characteristics of Indiana Jones in himself. Like, just for instance, every film of Indiana Jones, he's with a different female character.
Just like it.
Indiana Jones, he's got
007.
a different female character with him.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of correlations there. Good job on that aspect of picking
Well, maybe
Sean Connery as that
well,
character.
maybe Henry Jones Sr. is actually James Bond.
Ooh, I like it. I like it. Why don't we get
That would
into
make more
the
sense.
separate
That would make more
previous
sense.
conversation
That would
of
make,
different dimensions kind of coming together and
but that
Back to
would,
the Future Indiana Jones crossover and
but that would
pull
make
in
more, but
007?
that would make more sense why he didn't do anything. Except, oh, well, then maybe they'll find out who I really am.
Maybe. And maybe he's already been Back to the Future and knows what's going to happen anyway. Who knows? No, it's interesting. I like those aspects of the film. Yeah. So what does this one do for you? What is your favorite part of this film that stood out to you?
Um, Sean Connery. I think he's really the one that really made the film.
Yeah.
Even though he didn't do a whole lot, I mean, once you find out that Sean Connery's in the film, you're like, what's gonna happen? Because you're like, is something badass gonna happen?
Yeah.
And then it never
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I tell you, here's a funny badass part, right? And I know you know about this scene. They're in the library and
Yeah.
they find a spot where they need to like break through and continue on their journey. And it's in a library, so you have to be quiet. So this lady, she's stamping books, right? And it coincides the smashing of this piece with her
Exactly.
putting all
Smacking.
these stamps in
Well,
these
yeah.
books.
Because he's trying to hit the floor.
Yep, yep. He hits it, he breaks through, and she's like, "Holy crap! What the hell is that?" That was just how short in the movie that was. I don't know. That was just something that really stuck out to me in the movie. I like the part where they're going through the catacombs, and like you said, the female character becomes kind of like this wimp of just like, "Oh, there's rats everywhere. Oh, I can't do anything. Help me! Help me! Help
Well,
me!"
not the third one. The third one, she's actually badass. Because she's the Nazi.
True, yeah. I guess maybe I'm mistaken that scene. But isn't she in the catacombs with him? And there's a bunch of rats. But she does do more to help herself than in the other
I think
films.
she is scared of Midas. But
Yeah,
she does. I feel
she
like
helps
she
herself. Yeah,
helps
definitely.
more. Even though she's a bad guy,
Yep.
he doesn't know that. But she's trying to help him because in the long run and schemes, he's still helping the Nazis.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't know
He
he's
doesn't know it. Absolutely.
The one thing I didn't like about this movie is it does portray more of like a God thing. Like it's more
Yeah, more
religious.
religious themed. Yeah, definitely. I think the other ones have a lot of religion tied into them too, like
The
different
first
different
but
dogmatic
the
aspects of
first one I
religion.
feel like you can still explain because back then they had car batteries and like they've shown that back then Egyptians could make car batteries that could you could have put in the ark that could have caused some
Some
sort of
kind of
lightning to
sure,
kill them off or whatever.
maybe.
I don't know
Yeah,
if you ever seen those episodes of
no,
like
there's definitely,
Mythbusters and
and
stuff.
I think maybe that's why people really like to
The
watch
second
these
one,
films.
for sure,
No,
you could,
the second one to me is like, yeah, there may be some kind of
for
religion
the
tied to it, but it's more of like a satanic religion than
one, you could prove there's something like that whole plan thing. They figured it out because at first they thought
yeah,
it was like
yeah.
a hypnosis thing,
Maybe there's
but it was
smoking weed or something, or just something
well,
that
not
makes you.
smoking weed,
Well, I
but
know, but I'm just saying,
yeah,
like,
like
there's
a
some kind of
plant
substance that makes them
substance. Yeah,
loopy of some sort,
yeah,
maybe some kind of control. Yeah, I
which they
think.
did find out, and I think they gave people like an antidote type thing.
Yeah, yeah, and I honestly, I think that's
But in this
you know
one,
interesting.
that's why I didn't like the Crystal Skull either, is because it was based off basically,
Aliens.
yeah, fake
Yeah, it's come
fakeness.
completely fake. I don't know.
Which I mean, I don't know about
You
anybody on
know,
this
but
channel, but
yeah, and
I
here's
don't
the thing.
believe in God, and I don't believe in. I mean, I'm more likely to believe in aliens versus a
Well,
God,
I think that's what makes these films kind of interesting because maybe it kind of ties your curiosity to religion because you don't know what the arc is about. Maybe there is some religion tied to it. It kind of gets that same
well, the
mystery
art
involved into
does.
it. So, like for instance, when people say they believe in God, like it's all these films kind of portray that too, in that yeah, you got to have some kind of faith that there is something there to keep on like
Well,
going forward in that
the
nature.
first one they do because the arc actually does have to it does portray in the Bible,
Yeah, yeah.
and I don't know if you knew that.
No, yeah,
The
I think
second one has nothing to do with
nothing.
God
Yeah,
or Christ or anything.
but it still has like that weird kind of ritualistic religion tied to it in a
Yeah,
way.
and then the third one has to do with the
That's an
Holy
actual like
Grail,
it says it in there. It's like yeah, it's based off of the cup of Christ. So I mean,
which I
there's
mean,
some supernatural powers there to if you drink from the right grail, then you become basically
immortal.
invincible. You're
Yeah,
immortal.
yeah,
You can't
can't
like
die.
they take it and they say, well, this is the right one because I took it and I drank it and now I'm pouring it over Sean Connery's gunshot wound. Spoiler alert.
Spoiler.
He becomes healed then. So I mean that's an interesting piece. I mean, definitely we could talk about religion in all three of these films. I
In a
think
way.
that's another topic for another time, though. I mean,
Oh yeah, no.
specifically these films, though. Um, I like the way they did them. The director Steven Spielberg,
Spielberg, of course.
Lucasfilms. You know, it's Paramount Pictures.
Yeah, this is before Lucas got bought out by Disney.
Yep.
And they're actually making a fifth one now. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
They're making a fifth
Something to
Indiana.
look out for. Something to talk
And
about.
it's actually Harrison Ford, not someone else.
Yeah, no, I think Harrison Ford. He's done with the cash grabs after the whole Star Wars cash grab. I think he's probably like, ah, all right, I don't know if we
No,
should have
he's in the new one. He's gonna be in the fifth one.
in the fifth one.
Yeah,
You're
he's
gonna
gonna
play
be.
Harrison Ford
Yeah,
in the fifth
no,
one.
they already
Holy
confirmed it.
crap!
They already
All right,
confirmed that
all
he's
right.
gonna be in the fifth one.
Good for him. Good for him.
I'm
Man,
not saying there'll be someone that might take him over. Like in,
but you go back, dude.
I know,
This
like the 80s.
1981.
Yeah, 81.
Man,
I was close.
this is Top Gun Maverick all over again. You're going from 1986 to 2022. You know, that's a huge gap in
Well,
time.
I mean, they had Crystal Skull, which is like 2016,
Yeah,
18.
it's still a big gap,
No,
and he's
I
shown
know.
he can do those films. Oh, but still, man, that's a
I'm
huge,
sure
huge gap.
they'll just do. I mean, look from, you're right. Just like from like the third one to Crystal Skull, like look how big of a jump that was.
Yeah, huge, huge.
Huge jump. Because he was like
Well, even he
40s
did the same
maybe.
thing with the Star Wars theme too. It was just a huge jump. You talking Star Wars of old day, Han Solo to modern day Han Solo. Spoiler alert, you know, he ends up taking
Yeah.
himself out of the film, but
He didn't take himself out of the
well,
film.
they write him out of it.
No, they killed him off.
Yeah, they killed him off.
Yeah.
He's not long. He's no longer. He can portray in flashbacks. He's not going to be in the future anymore.
No. Which is funny because they did make a Han Solo movie though.
let's let's move on to our final trilogy of this film.
Over our podcast. I mean,
Yeah, of this podcast.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
We're talking about the old ones,
Yeah, we're talking about the 90s.
early '90s. Um, to start off conversation, I like the second one the best. Again, for some reason, I like the second one
It's like you like the second one.
out of
Oh!
all of these. Number two is my favorite.
Surprisingly, the first one is not my favorite. The third one is actually my favorite.
No way, no way.
Yeah.
I kind of suspected that, but we could talk to why we like those. Uh, why why is there a first one?
Why is there?
Why is there a first one?
So there's two guys that created a comic book starring four turtles, and they're like, well, let's make them do stuff.
I when they made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think they had the end in mind. Like, for instance, I think they came up with the four Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then how did they get there afterwards? Like,
Oh yeah,
they
yeah, yeah.
definitely like we need some badass Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and I think it fits the era too of just like ninjas being in theme. Who made this?
Um,
Golden Harvest presents a Limelight production.
that's who made the movie, but it
Yeah.
was two guys that made the characters,
So the original, it was based off of
a
a
comic
comic book.
book
Yep.
that two guys made, and they were trying to figure out what animal can we make cool. And I don't remember how. I forget how they came up on turtles. But then they made all, and then all four of them were all the same color at one point. The first original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was black and white. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't know that. What year did that come out?
I
Roughly.
honestly,
Roughly.
probably like 1990, probably. I don't
Let's
really
get a
know.
time on this film
I think
here.
it's 93 or 95 or something like that for the movie. It's gotta be in early 90s. I know how.
1990.
So then the Turtles had to come in like 89, in early 80s.
Yeah, sometime in the 80s. Then this was filmed. I honestly, I liked some of the cartoons that they had as a kid. I
And
liked
that's what
watching
that's
some of
based
those.
off
Yep.
of.
So yeah, this is based off of it. Some interesting things they did in this film that I like is the real life nature of the turtles. They didn't do any CG. Like the newer turtles, they did CG.
Yeah,
These are all like
real people.
animatronic
No,
people.
they're people
No, I'm
inside.
just saying like the mouse movements
Oh
and how
yeah,
they did all that.
they're
Like
people on
it's a
puppets.
very interesting. Yeah, it's like you're a person and a puppet at the same time.
Yeah,
Like,
puppeteer.
and they did a good job of the like early '90s face movements on a made up turtle, Ninja Turtle.
Oh
Like,
yeah, they
look,
look like they're
they
real.
look like they were real, man. For that time period, they did a hell of a good job. Like the amount of effort put into these films, bravo. I wish I could have been part of something like that. Like, there's ton. I mean, obviously these big studios have tons of resources, but the fact that they done it was just great.
Well, and it wasn't even like a big studio. I've never heard of Golden Harvest, but you
Yeah,
said that.
honestly, yeah, I haven't
But
either.
I mean, there, like you said, there's no CGI, there's no real special effects. I don't even think in the first one. I can remember.
If there is, it's probably very subtle because I don't
So
really remember it either. There wasn't even like, comic book kapows or wham flaps or anything like that. It was all just like they still had those sound effects.
they kind of did
They
that.
did the sound effects, but they didn't do any visual.
They did
Uh,
do that in one of the movies. I forget. They did do like a pow, but it was kind of just like a funny
yeah, yeah,
thing.
and I
I
think
think
you
it was the
almost have to go
second.
back to that comic book portrayal too. It's great. So, what's the plot of the first one?
So the plot of the first one, basically, Splinter is their master. There's a big, huge rat. Finds these four turtles that get into this ooze and become four teenage
Yeah.
mutant
Splinter and
turtles.
the four
Four
turtles, they get
turtles.
oozed on, and then they become like radioactive. The
Yep.
Ninja Turtles, and they're teenagers.
Well, they're teenagers
Splinter's
at
an
the time.
older mouse, obviously, or a rat.
Well, see, it depends on what version you go by. So in the movie, he's a pet rat.
Okay, okay.
But in like some of the older comic books, he was a dead version of the sensei, or I don't know. Like
So yeah,
some
there's
of
some
them didn't
different
make it.
different portrayals. Specifically in this though,
This one, he
he
was
was just a
pet rat.
pet rat.
Somehow, and I don't even remember. I think so. His master dies,
Yeah, yeah.
and then he gets lost into the sewer system
Now,
somehow.
my guess would be something along the lines of the pet rat was part of like a ninja dojo or something, like
Yeah. So his
somebody that
master.
was ninja like,
Yeah.
and so the rat is who taught the
Caught
Ninja
the turtles.
Turtles to be ninjas.
Yep.
And
You're
that's
not wrong.
yeah.
So his master was from China, and he moved to New York, and then his master was a ninja master, and so a lot of the moves that Splinter actually learns is from his master as a pet rat.
Okay. Okay.
And so then when his master dies,
Somehow
spoiler,
the
Shredder is the one that kills his master,
okay, okay.
and
Yeah.
then
And
so
that's
then
why he's
he
got some kind
scratches
of
him.
yep, he's got some kind of okay, that's how Shredder gets
He gets scratched
from Shredder.
Splinter. From Splinter.
Oh, Shredder gets
Scratched
scratched
from
from
Splinter.
Splinter. Okay, okay.
So that's why he wears a mask.
Gotcha, gotcha.
So in this movie, and then so then, um,
I'm just gonna read the back here just to get a
just for it.
overview of the movie. Now you can catch America's favorite green teens in their first live action blockbuster film. After waiting in a puddle of radioactive waste, these radical reptiles are transformed into New York City's greatest crime fighting quartet. Featuring a soundtrack with MC Hammer, this film will captivate adults and kids alike with its blend of humor, camaraderie, and martial arts action. Don't miss this blockbuster movie. You'll have one shell of a good time. Like it. I
So
had to.
and then so these in this movie, I don't remember why the turtles are on the road. I think they were like part of a pet store and they got lost some way,
And
somehow.
they
And
got
then
into the ooze.
and they got in the news that,
So
and then they became started. And then Master Splinter saw how they were transforming, and he saw himself the way he was transforming, and then he took it on himself to read more about martial arts because all he knew was from what he saw from his master, and then he took and read more like different, you know,
yeah.
all the different weapons they
And
use
honestly, as a kid, I never grew up in New York, but I get a lot of my visuals from actually like what New York would be portrayed at in my eyes from
from
the
the
Ninja
Ninja Turtles.
Turtles. Yeah. Like everybody likes pizza there. The Ninja Turtles, they like pizza. They like going off and slicing up some pizza
Which
and
is funny
whatnot.
because I've always heard of New York as a pizza place, but then
You
you
went
go
there,
there
and
and
then
it's
there's not
not
much for
about
pizza.
pizza,
Yeah, yeah.
which is kind of weird.
When you went there, did you see any hot dog stands?
I did not see hot dogs.
That's interesting. That's what I think about too when I think of
Yeah,
New York is
no,
hot dog stands and pizza and
no, you're
like
right.
those staples in America. Like I don't know,
I
there's
think I
something
saw
interesting.
more hot dog stand type things in Los Angeles than I did in New York.
Hmm, it's interesting.
But yeah, so Master Splinter basically trains them in each different weapon. That's why they all have different weapons. He names them all in this movie, which in the new one it was April that names them all,
Yeah, and like
which
the
I thought was kind of stupid.
which is kind of funny too, because aren't the names Donatello, Leonardo, Raphael, and they all Italian names? Does that probably portray into the pizza liking thing? I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting.
Well, see, all of them are actually like artists of some sort from
Yeah,
that
yeah.
Italy.
Maybe it's the
But Donatello, I don't know where they got that from.
yeah, and he's
Like
more of a
Raphael is an artist.
yeah.
Michelangelo,
Michelangelo
an
artist.
artist. Raphael was an artist.
Donatello,
Donatello,
maybe he was an artist,
maybe he
but
was an artist, but
isn't
I've never heard.
isn't Donatello the smart one though?
Yeah, Donatello is
So
a smart one.
he's maybe it is some kind of backstory that like he's some kind of badass.
If he
Whereas
if he is, I have
all
no.
the other ones are based off of artists and they're more badass. Like they got some
They're
weaponry.
based off of
Whereas
some.
like Donatello has a freaking stick as a weapon. So I mean it's like he's based off maybe some kind of badass in the past that he's not as much of a badass. He's more of like just a brainiac. I don't know, more nerdy than all the other ones.
He is the brains.
Um, how about some of the other supporting characters? April and
And
the hockey dude,
Casey,
Casey.
Casey Jones.
Casey Jones. April O'Neil. You're gonna
April
say
O'Neil.
Casey O'Neil.
I was gonna say Casey O'Neil.
April O'Neil and Casey Jones. I don't know. They get portrayed in different lights in some of the other films. I like the way they're portrayed in this. She's a news anchor. He's a hockey player of some sort. I don't know what else he does.
He was. I mean, he was. I don't know if he really was a hockey player, but like they made him feel like he was at some point, but he either wasn't good enough to be on like an actual hockey team, or like he felt like he wasn't, or like he couldn't get down the whole rollerblading thing or something. Like,
Yeah,
because he never rollerblades
sure.
in this one. In the new one, he does.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever watched that one. But
So what's the main plot of the first one? Do you remember?
so the main plot is just basically
Going after Shredder?
going after Shredder and the Foot Clan. Foot Clan is basically the main bad guys. They steal a bunch of stuff from like different stores and burn down things and
So they're more of
make
like
it chaos.
vigilantes helping to stop the crime of them going around the city.
Turtles is yeah.
Yeah.
Turtles are like they're like the Batman
Like the Batman of
of New
that
York
era.
of that.
Yeah, I mean, never, when I watched it as a kid, I never thought of it as like the comic book. Obviously, it has to have come from somewhere. I like how they portrayed him in this film. Um, Not my favorite, if I remember right, because it's the same ordeal for me as the other films. I watched more of number two. I watched more of number three than I did of number one. I still
I
kind of
think
remember some of the scenes in number
I
one.
think number one we didn't like it just because we watched the cartoons,
Sure.
and it's them versus Shredder.
Yeah.
And I felt like in the cartoons, Shredder was more badass than in this one.
Yeah.
Honestly, I feel like Shredder was kind of a letdown. In this
Another
one.
another thing. So
And I think that's why I like two more, just because
I think I
Shredder
will
is
watch.
more of a badass.
I'm gonna watch number
One
one
again.
again just to get another portrayal of it. I think the kids would like this too. I think this would be a good
Yeah,
one
it's
for
not
everyone.
bad. It's
Not a
not
bad
violent.
film.
The
Good
second one,
overall
I
with
think,
the fighting, but
I think you like the second one more just because you have Super Shredder. It's more cartoony, and there's more of a different story to it. 'Cause Shredder is more of a badass.
I'm gonna tell you why I like the second one.
Okay, you gotta tell me why you like.
Go Ninja, go Ninja,
Go,
go, go, go Ninja, go.
So you like Vanilla Ice?
I like the Vanilla Ice song tied with fighting those oozed characters that they have.
Yeah,
That's
the
my favorite
turtle
part of the
and
film. That's it. That's it. That's hands down why I like number two. It's just that scene and them fighting the bigger characters.
I feel like
the
they should
extra
have did
oozed characters.
Bebop and Rocksteady versus I don't know who these guys were.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't. I honestly don't remember their names.
Well, I don't really
They
either,
might
but
be in the back.
it's so impactful for me. Like that's why I like number two. And just to give an overview of number two, the turtles are up to their shells in trouble when a canister of toxic ooze falls into the hands of the evil Master Shredder. Aided by their new pal Kino, the pizza delivery boy, the turtles take on Shredder and his mutant allies, Razor and Toka. Is that how you say that?
Razor sounds like
Razor and Toka. To capture and destroy the dangerous ooze and make the world safe again for turtles, humans, and pizza. That's it for me. I mean, Shredder, I think he's more of a badass in this one.
Not very much though.
I mean,
He looks badass.
I think, yeah, the look. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
the look.
I think
felt like
they probably didn't portray him as much of a badass as far as fighting and such, because the costume is a bit much. You think about realistic portrayal and fighting of that in that kind of a costume. It's probably a lot of like extra plastics and different shits they put on there that probably break off if they honestly tried
Well,
fighting.
I think that's probably what happened in the first one.
Yeah.
The fight scene was just not there.
Maybe they tried and they're like, dude, we got this costume is too elaborate. We can't have fighting scenes in this film. We got to do something else. And they probably just wrote something else for the film. Who knows? I mean, they still kicked his ass, but I don't know.
I just felt like there should have been more of a fight. They could have still took off most of his armor to do that fight scene. I feel like it was still.
Like that could have been part of the scene. It's like, all right,
They could have even took off all his
take off
armor.
some of the spikes. Take off some.
They could have took all his armor off and still
make him more of a ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Make him more of a fighting person than sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
The first one he did nothing. The second one he really almost does nothing.
Yeah. He makes these two ultra powerful little creature things that they get their ass kicked anyway, but it adds to the film.
No, I know. I mean, I do. The second one I feel like is a little better than the first one, just because there is more to it. Because like it's sort of like trying to redeem himself in a way.
Another thing I like about this film is the intro. I just love the intro. Intro does it for me. Like on this.
No,
one,
yeah,
it does. It gets you drawn in. It's just like they're hidden. They're fighting the Foot Clan. You know, they pop out and they're almost like comical about it. They know they're gonna kick their ass. It's like you're watching a Steven Seagal film. They're cocky. Yeah, they're kind of like they portray themselves as teenagers. They're
strike one, strike two,
strike three.
Fire!
Love that scene. I don't know. And then the pizza delivery boy, he's like, "What the hell did I get myself into?"
Did you know he was actually one of the turtles in the first one?
I did not know that.
So he was
in one of the animatronic.
Turtles.
And you could tell just by
he may have been the second one. I don't know, but I know for a fact he was in the first one.
Well, yeah, and just the amount of work that went into that film, like you got to get the guys that can act, let's say, and fight. Like, I guess you don't really need to act as much. You still need to have some kind of acting skills. Maybe I don't know.
But see,
how do they do the dialogue in that? Do you think, and I'm sure there's probably some film out there that explains it, but do you think that they had somebody else do the dialogue on the outside, or is the person in the mask talking and the mouth going?
the person inside's talking because they had microphones.
And the microphone coincided with the talking?
Yeah,
I just think that's be the hardest thing to line up.
I don't know how they made the mouth move.
See, that's where I'm like, I don't know. So they had
But they
obviously
did.
you have your storyboarding and everything, your dialogue's
Because
already written out.
they had
But
microphones in them.
the details of the mouth wasn't super detailed. Like it wasn't like barbaric of just like Pac-Man opening his mouth when they're talking. Like
Yeah, they were those for
you know,
listening.
like a voiceover of a Japanese film or something. You know what I mean? It wasn't anything like that. But the film the mouth movements were still pretty accurate to what they were saying. Like they had some kind of
Well, if
they
you
had some
notice,
they had some structure to them. The mouth had some structure to be able to kind of go along with the dialogue.
I think if you really watch, you never see them talk and fight at the same time.
Yeah, true. I
So
think
I think
there's something to that.
when they're talking, they probably use both hands to move the mouth, so that it looks like more realistic. I'm just guessing.
Maybe. Who knows?
I'm
I
just
mean, that's a good guess. I'm guessing too. I'm just guessing too.
yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, that's a good, like, effort benchmark for them to say, how the hell did you do that? Like, I wouldn't know where to begin. Like,
I,
if you and I are trying to film something like Ninja Turtle
I
wise,
wouldn't know how to fucking
yeah,
do it.
how the hell? Okay, Paxton. Next week we need to come up with an animatronic mouth that can speak dialogue in this film,
Honestly, I would probably just get
and it's gonna have to survive like ninja scenes. So
I would just
Go ahead and get on that.
I'd try to get anything rubber and just suffer.
my idea would have been like, all right, get some sock puppets and sit here and just try and film some. I don't know. Good job on them.
Let's get
Come on.
Measures
How can you just commend them on doing something like
No,
that
I
for
know,
this
yeah,
film?
I know.
That's just great. And I like the ooze. The ooze reminds me of
Nickelodeon.
yeah, Nickelodeon, Power Rangers.
Power Rangers, the Ooze.
Yeah, Secrets of the Ooze, or whatever. I don't know.
Ghostbusters, they got Ooze.
Radioactive ooze is such an awesome prop. You know, I want to give me some radioactive ooze. I don't care what it does. I just want some. Maybe it'll kill me for all I know. I don't know. I don't know. I think it's fun to think about.
She's good at drawing, if you say it.
Yeah, a lot of things are like I don't know. That must have been like the '80s theme of just like, all right, how are we gonna get from point A to point B? Radioactive ooze, duh. That's how you do it, man.
I think it was like a power source. I think is what they
Yeah,
were trying
yeah,
to use.
and you know, just given the time period, you know, post an atomic bomb, splitting the atom, and into generating power from nuclear energy, it's easy to be like, oh, where are we going to get all our energy from? Well, dude, this uranium is super energy dense. Let's just use that. And then, okay, well, how do we portray it? I'll just put it in some ooze and have it ooze out into some kind of way. I don't know. Just figure it out. No, I think it's a good way. It's a good way to, I don't know. The first person to come up with that, I think, did a good job. Who did it first? Power Rangers or Turtles? One of the Power Rangers
I
movies
think
come out.
Power Rangers was first.
I'm sure there's some other film where
Because I think
somebody else did it first.
Power Rangers is the early '90s too. So maybe the Turtles actually did the. I don't know who did the Ooze first. I would think the Turtles. I have to give it to the Turtles on the Ooze thing because the Ooze didn't come out until like.
Well, there's so many other
2000,
comic books and
2000.
ideas of the early gens, you know, like classic, um, classic comic books. Maybe there's something out there. It's hard to imagine somebody else hadn't already come up with that.
Oh, like the Ooze thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because that's how, like, I'm not saying that's how every superpower came to be, but if you're trying to put something together like kryptonite, how did they come up with kryptonite? Like that seems pretty unique. Like
I think it's just people that were just like, oh, we need something to actually hurt Superman.
yeah, yeah.
Well, let's get a rock. Yeah, but normal rocks don't hurt him. Well, let's make it green then.
Yeah.
Well, what's this green rock do to make him, you know?
And it's probably the base nature of the crypt and a night, you know, at the end of it. So it's like crypto night, you know, just putting it together. It's a rock, right? It came from a distant
Well, I think
star or
they came
something.
over like staglite and then like cave.
Yeah, yeah. It's some kind of substance, and then you had that crypto nature to it, where the crypt would be like gravesite or something. So maybe it
Make a
puts
waver.
Superman in his grave type of
Yeah.
portrayal. But onto like the ooze stuff, man. Like
It'll make
I
you
think
more
it's fun.
powerful.
I think it's fun. In some ways, I think it's an easy scapegoat. Like we couldn't come up with our own shit, so let's use the ooze. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, make the
yeah, no,
rebellion.
I like it applied in this film. Like I'm not saying like that's not a bad piece, but it's an easy scapegoat. Like we didn't want to come up with our own ways of doing point A to point B, so let's just do the ooze.
I
You get
mean,
what I'm
but
saying?
how else you make a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle?
Yeah, exactly,
I mean,
exactly.
most people when they think mutant, they think of
Think back to
toxic waste that goes into the
exactly,
water,
exactly.
and they're like, "Well, we can't use toxic waste because then they'd make a monster. So we need something else that could still make a mutant, though."
Yeah.
Well, how about this ooze?
How did the X-Men come to be?
Some were just born that way.
Yeah, born that way.
Like Wolverine was born with his claws, but to get the metal, he was injected with the titanium alloy metal.
Sure.
Most of them were born that way.
It's something to look into.
Like
Like
he
how?
was born that way.
Yeah.
Most of them were just born that
Yeah.
way.
Oh,
Like Spider-Man, he got his powers by a radioactive spider. Again,
I like
yeah,
that something radioactive. I I don't know.
Seeing
There's
Gotham,
something
he
to
had
it.
some sort
Yeah.
of ooze
I don't know. We haven't come up with really anything else like
Joker
in
became
the
the
real world.
Joker from falling in a vat of ooze.
Yeah, yeah. And
So that would actually go
there's something to it.
before
They
the
use
ooze.
turtles is something it's easily recognizable. Like you ever see those characters that are in some films that like okay, how the hell did you come up with this monster? Well, usually it's vaguely based off of something else that's in real life.
Well,
Like
yeah,
there's some
like Solomon Grundy is based on Frankenstein, and so is the Hulk in a way. Hulk is
yeah,
kind of based on a
yeah,
monster.
and I like it. I mean, we're only gonna get further into it. I don't like how today's modern films coming up with just remakes and remakes and remakes. Like I'll watch a remake, but I'm more interested in something new, something fresh.
They're just running out of ideas.
I wish I could get out there and like push some new ideas. Like even if it's maybe the same but subtly different. Like the ooze, for instance, going from Ninja Turtles ooze
Or
to like
Top
the
Gun Maverick.
yeah, yeah, Top
Same,
Gun, yeah, exactly.
same
Definitely could talk about
concept.
something like that.
Yeah. We never did get to the third one.
Let's go to the third one. We got a little bit more time, and maybe we'll learn to be a little more time conscious.
I think we need to stop talking about other movies when we.
I think it adds to it.
Well, I mean, to a certain extent, like
yeah,
when we got in that rambling about the old time thing.
yeah, it definitely took up a lot of time.
That's a good one.
We're back to the future though.
Going back to
Number
the future of
three.
Extra Real Podcast.
Number three, I agree with you. Number three was good for me. It wasn't number one. I think number two for me was still number one. But two, sorry, number two was number one. Number three was probably my number two. Kind of same, along the same lines as all the other ones.
I like the April O'Neil in this one. She's
I like how they
better
added.
looking, I
There's
think.
another character called Yoshi in this one.
Yeah, Yoshi.
Yoshi, yeah. I mean, I like the Asian ancestry in this to kind of go back to ninja fighting.
Well, and they talk about the Ninja Turtles as like an actual creature back in the like an actual Japanese and Chinese lure. They have dragons. They have different types of like I don't know if they're turtles, but I think they're like toads or
Yeah, yeah.
they have that kind of lure that oh well this could be real.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what I like about three is it's more realistic, I think, than
Yeah, instead of being just
the
in
first and second
just
one.
like being from New York and how they portray that, they're actually kind of like
I mean, they're
a
still mystic
lot
in a
of
way.
the ninja aspects comes from that culture.
Culture
So
too,
it's
yeah.
that culture that they go back to that carries in this film. What's some of the scenes that you liked from this film?
um, I, the first one I really like is when just before they leave, Michelangelo's trying out different outfits, And I don't know, because so whenever they pour it all out, someone has to portal in. So if they go in naked, that person will come out naked. And so they were sitting there trying on clothes, and Mikey was trying on these shorts and stuff. And then I don't remember why, but he puts on it's like a shade lamp thing on his head. And he's
Yeah.
in there dancing. And then
I
people
remember that.
catch him, and he's like, "No!" It's
Yeah.
like you're trying to be funny, but you didn't want anybody seeing you be funny. Like that makes no sense, but it was just hilarious. And then how Master Splinter does that too. It's just hilarious. I thought it was really this one. I felt like Master Splinter was more cheesy.
What was that? Was that like a time travel
Yeah, so
trope?
they had a time travel. So speaking of Back
Back
to
to
the
the
Future,
Future. Yep.
they had a time wand that
Yep.
would spin, and it was like an hourglass that would spin really fast, and it was like a mystic one where it would go back in. So they went back in time.
Oh, I like that. I like that portrayal. It's a decent portrayal of the time travel piece.
So what happens is April finds a like a thrift store or
Flea
something,
market, some sort of.
something like
Yeah.
that. I honestly forget.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
It's been
But
the
it's something like that. She buys
Yep.
it. She buys everybody something from there, and then she was to give that to Master Splinter as a gift. So she was sitting there holding it, and she's sitting there. Bad idea. Don't read anything.
Yeah.
She was sitting there reading it because I think she knows. I don't know if it's actually Chinese or Japanese. I don't remember. Sorry if I'm reading anybody's, but she's sitting there reading it 'cause she knows the language of whatever it is. I don't know what it. And then all of a sudden, sparks start flying, and she's like, "What the heck's going on here?"
Yeah.
And then she transforms, and then that's when that Yoshi guy comes in.
Yeah.
And then, so then I'm like, "Shit! Now we gotta go save April." You know,
Yeah.
damsel in distress.
Yeah. Again, typical movie trope there. Yeah.
But see, I mean, but she's more. She's not a whiner like in the Jones the
Yeah.
second one. At least April's at least even the first one, she's more of a help than that girl in second Indiana Jones. I feel like she might be the damsel in distress, but she's at least willing to try to help herself.
So just to wrap things up, any good takeaways you get from this film? Anything you want to add?
The third one, I feel like I liked it just because it has a bad guy, and then it has a semi bad guy, and then they have good guys. So like the good guys are the there's rebels. The semi I say semi bad guys because like they want to be good, but they have to go with the bad guys to try to take out the rebels.
Sure.
Even though they the rebels and the mid evil guys want the same thing. In the end, they all work together and then they defeat the big bad guy. And I forget what his name is, but Michelangelo calls him Clint Eastwood. But
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah. The only kind of critique I would give to really all of these films, they don't, and granted, there's so much money involved in making a good film and giving something to people that they want to watch. The biggest critique I'd give to all these films really is they kind of don't go outside the box. They're all just kind of, all right, let's stick to the meat and potatoes and stick to the script. Have some kind of like, oh, something happens, you get a climax and oh, we solved it. Boom, we're done. They would have went a little more.
Third one, I feel like they did a little bit more work on.
Yeah,
I know what you're
yeah.
saying. Like they had a
The,
point A,
it's
point B,
yeah,
and then point C.
it's kind of just the same timeline. I enjoy the hell out of some films that just go outside that box. Maybe the good guys don't win. Maybe there is some something that
I
goes
feel
on.
like this.
But
Well, I mean, the good guy has to win.
I know that's what I mean. Like you can't go outside that box. It's that same box you have to
I
kind of
feel like
fit in.
I feel like they should have did like a Star Trek or Star Wars where the good guys can win one, but let's let the bad guys win one.
Yeah, exactly. Do that. On number two, let's say we're gearing up for number three.
Yeah,
Number two, to be continued. They do end up getting their, butts
Shrek
kicked.
does kick their butt.
Yeah, they get their butt
I think
kicked.
they do get their
He
butts
does
kicked at
kick.
first.
You remember in the cartoon there was that character Craig was his name?
Crane.
Oh, Crane. Sorry, yeah, Crane. That was a hell of a character too. Do something like that. Do something like a Dr. Eggman. Like okay, he's Maybe the
bring
bad
in a
guy
new
comes back
character
in, bring in new characters, do something different.
to make it so
Do
like
it no,
it's
do it where #2 is still a badass film, lots of ninja fighting, lots of this, that, and the other.
and then the bad
Bring in
guys
the
win.
ooze. Bad guys win. Yeah, totally. To be continued. Bad guys win. I don't know.
Round two, bad guys win.
Yeah, gear up for film 3 or something.
I mean, that's
That's
what
my
they did in
only.
the cartoon
Yeah,
version.
yeah. Well, every cartoon, like every TV show, does that. It seems like
Well,
it's
I'm
always
talking
like
about the
the big
Teenage Mutant
continue.
the
The
cartoon
animated
version.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
the bad guy does win, and that's what I like about three is they do kind of lose in a way because like they try to get home, they make a new sector, and they're like, "This is it, we're gonna go home," and then things starts to work, and then all of a sudden it just falls apart and breaks, and then they're like, "Ah,
Well, we've been at it for like an hour and 51 minutes.
oh
I think we
jeez."
should end it here. But hopefully, we're gonna put this up on YouTube and give her a look, give her a watch, and
Let us
come
know what
back.
you think we need to change, do better,
Yeah,
or
I
maybe we can
I
give
could give
people like
myself
our
a little critique. We need to probably structure it a little better, keep within a time frame on certain films, and know when to move around a little more and know what to talk about. I think this is a good start.
I
No,
think
I
we
just feel
should limit it to maybe 6 movies instead of trying to do like 9
yeah, definitely,
or like
and
a
do
little bit
movies
less.
like
Trying
actually
to stay
instead
within.
of going back to like just memory of let's say 10 years ago when you last watched the film, maybe do a little homework and watch the film before we watch them or before we critique them and talk about them and such. Like I feel like these are pretty good staples to have a good memory of, but there's always I don't remember every single scene in the film. It'd be nice to go back through and
I mean,
watch everything again.
are you really gonna remember every part of the scene even after you watch it one
Maybe
time?
not, but just like with anything, you watch it again, you kind of catch those scenes, those some scenes, and I'm like,
I
oh, that's why it came across that, the loop around effect of like,
I
oh,
mean I know what you're
you
saying, but there
remember,
was some stuff I
it's the Nibbler in Futurama that kind of comes up and comes back, like, oh, I didn't catch that before, but now that they say it, it's there.
yeah, but did it really matter? Probably not.
Probably not, but you get a little more
I know what you're
feedback, a
saying.
little
More to the story.
more lore,
I know what
more
you're
story,
saying. Yeah,
yeah.
more to the
Become
story.
more invested in the film in a way too. Yeah.
But I think that's it from us.
Yeah, checking out.
Keep it
Come
extra
back
real.
again. Keep it real.
Keep it extra real.